Right, good. Hello and welcome to this special segment of the Charlton Chronicles. We're pre-recording because obviously we couldn't be joined live. So today I'm welcomed by Mark Chapman, who is from the Luton Town Supporters Trust, who's going to give us a little bit of feedback about the signings we've made from Luton. Mark, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. Um, Looking forward to a new season after a disaster of last one.
Yeah, do you know what? We'll talk about the players, and I'll come on to Luton because I've actually really enjoyed watching Luton Town over the last couple of years, and I think their demise is actually really sad, to be honest, because I've really enjoyed watching some of the football. Probably more so under Rob Edwards, actually. So yeah, it's quite sad to see where they currently are, but obviously, we've made some signings from Luton, which we were always going to do under Nathan Jones, but I'll probably talk to you a little bit about him as well. But obviously, I'll start with Thomas Kaminski, who for me was probably, when that was announced, I thought that was a superb signing. So, what's your thoughts on him, and what should Charlton fans look to expect from him as a goalkeeper?
As a shot stopper, up there with the very best I've ever seen at Luton. So I've been going over 40 years, and he is one of the best shot stoppers I've ever seen there. The issues with Kaminski are lack of communication with defenders and inability to come off the line. So he doesn't come off the line too much. Now, I don't know what your centre halves are like, but we had a very, very quiet set of centre halves last year, a couple of young ones, and that was one of the biggest issues. If you've got a dominant, very talkative centre half, that will help him immensely. But for shot stopping capabilities, up there with the very, very best. Obviously, Belgium #2 does get called away on international duty, albeit it shouldn't affect you too much. But yeah, very, very good shot stopper. Just be wary. Don't come off his line too much, and communication with defenders is sometimes lacking.
Yeah, I mean, going on to our defenders, you probably know Lloyd Jones relatively well, as obviously he played for you guys, but he's an absolute colossus at the back for us, and defensively he's probably where we're pretty strong. I mean, I think we had 24 clean sheets last season, and I was actually surprised to see us bring in a new goalkeeper because Will Mannion, who was obviously our #1 last season, had a relatively good season, but I do think we probably needed to make the step up in terms of quality in goalkeeper. So do you think with more of a maybe commanding defence, he'll be a good addition?
Oh yeah, as for shot stopping, he pulled off some. When we were in the Premier League season, I think he had save of the season, if my memory serves me correctly. It was certainly save of the month, and I think it ended up save as the season. Um, so absolutely brilliant shot stopper. Yeah, as I say, the only queries around it is the communication with defenders and everything else. So, we bought him in when we went into the Premier League with a view of his shot stopping capabilities, and that was proven throughout the season.
Yeah, he's certainly a keeper that we haven't really seen him in pre-season. I only went to Dartford and he didn't play, but I'm looking forward to seeing him in action. I think Mannion's actually been injured, so I'm imagining come the start of the season he's probably going to be stepping straight into the #1 role. We'll move on to the next signing. Now, this is one that I wasn't exactly dumbfounded by, if I'm completely honest, and I think the fans were getting a bit of the ump at this point with the Luton connection. So Amari Bell. Now, he's not really a player I know a great deal about, if I'm completely honest. I know obviously he can play in the back line. Is he of an age probably where he's maybe towards the end of his career? So I'm relying really on you to kind of tell myself and obviously the Charlton fans really a bit more about him and his capabilities.
Okay, well, we bought him in 4 seasons ago on a free transfer from Blackburn. Played initially at left wing back, and had pace and was a good, decent defender. Can get forward, decent cross, picked up the occasional goal, although not many. Towards 2 years into his period with us, he was then converted more to a left wing, a left centre half of a 3. Now, I don't know whether you normally play. Do you normally play a 5 or a 4?
We're a 5 normally.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you're a 5, he will be playing the left-hand side of the back 3. Not particularly tall as a centre half, has pace over a short period of time. Can play the left wing back role, but has lost some of his pace because I think he's now 32. So lost some of his pace. Decent competitive defender, always gives his all. Championship quality. Yes, he has still got a championship quality and can do a job. But as I say, I would be seeing him as a left of a 3 rather than a left wing back role now because he has lost that little bit of pace. The other thing is he's obviously represents Jamaica, does go over there, and it would appear that the long travelling midweek does affect him on his return when he comes back. Slightly injury prone over the last 18 months or so, and that's coincided with the loss of pace. But as I say, decent, consistent defender, will do a decent job for you. Don't know whether you've brought him in as a first choice or as a backup. Certainly very good backup.
Yeah, my thoughts will probably be backup. I mean, one of our standout players last season was our left centre back in Macaulay Gillespie, and obviously he got the winner at Wembley in the playoff as well. So I can only probably see him coming in as a backup. But obviously it's good to have that experience if you do. But it's a long season, as you well know. It's good to have that experience in depth, isn't it? If you do pick up those injuries, and obviously it's not that easy to find a left-sided centre half as well. So they are a bit of a rarity. So it's always good to have. And following on from your comment about the Jamaica team, we've actually got our own bobsled team, I think. So we've got obviously Karoy Anderson, Tyrese Campbell, Kaheen Dixon, and obviously now Amari. So yeah, we've got our own bobsled team there. So we do seem to, we love a Luton player and we love a Jamaican player at Charlton at the minute. He's a bit of a laughing joke, to be honest. But we'll move on to a signing that I was actually really, really impressed with. And it does concern me with his injuries, but watching him at Dartford, I was incredibly impressed with Reese Burke. So I know, reading feedback from Luton fans, they love him and love the service he's obviously given the club. But the injury problems are a concern for me, if I'm honest. So what's your overall thoughts on him, and what should we look to expect? And are the injuries, a persistent problem that plague him?
Well, I think the maximum number he's been with us 4 seasons. We signed him on a free transfer from Hull City. During the period with us, I would arguably say, when fit, he's arguably been our best defender. He's got pace, he can head a ball, he's tall, he can play the right wing back role at a push, but probably right hand side of a 3 is where you would be. Decent distribution, fans' favourite, and as I say, arguably our best ever defender when fit. And that's the issue. The best we've had out of him is is about 60% of the games in a season. So if you can keep him fit, absolutely superb defender. Absolutely superb. And was not out of place in the Premier League.
Wow. Yeah, like I said, the bit that I have seen of him, I was really, really impressed. And Jones gave him the captain's armband in part of that game as well. So he obviously has a lot of faith and trust in him and his abilities, and obviously his leadership, which hopefully we can keep him fit. We've got a really good medical team at Charlton, and we've got the old Brighton Dr. Will Abbott at Charlton as well. So if we can manage Chuck Saniki through injury, I'm pretty sure we can manage Reese Burke through injury, hopefully. So a question I've got from Tyler, who's part of our Chronicles team here for you, Mark, is he just wants to know which player out of the 3 do you think will have the best impact on us this season, or for us?
You can keep him fit, Reese Burke, without a shadow of doubt, because he has got that ability he's got pace as a centre half, so he can not only win a header, but he can pick a ball up and take it forward. So he can not only be a good defensive player, but he can also be an attribute in the final third as well. So he will be the best. Although Kaminski, if he can settle into the defence and play with the defenders, should be a very good attribute. Because the one thing I would add is, obviously we've been back in Division 1 now, but obviously we've been there relatively recently. The one thing I would say is don't underestimate the difference between the Championship and Division 1. It is huge.
Yeah.
It's nearly as big a gap as it is between the Championship and the Premier League. There are some significant teams in there with significant budgets. And that is the major difference between Division 1 and Championship. We came out of Division 1 with Nathan Jones. Obviously, it's one of his periods where he disappeared for a period, came back halfway through the first period in Division 1, did save us from relegation, but it was very tight, very tight.
Yeah, I think obviously we've been in the Championship before in 2019 when we got promoted, but we got really plagued by injuries. I mean, obviously we had some fantastic loan players at the time in Josh Cullen, Conor Gallagher, and you obviously look at what they've moved on to now. But unfortunately, we lost Gallagher halfway through, and Cullen picked up a really bad injury. And I think if you don't have the strength in depth in the Championship, you really will struggle, and you do need players with that experience, which I think we have picked up. And I think at the moment the rumour is that Charlie Kelman is signing for us, which is, and I don't know if you know much about him, but he was the top scorer in League One last season with Leighton Orient. So
apparently we've been linked with him as well.
Yeah, I have heard, yeah. But if we pull that off, I'll be very happy with that signing. And obviously, we signed Tanto. I don't know if I'm going to say this right. Alafi from Stockport, who he's a big unit. He looks strong and fast and looks like a good player. So hopefully, we'll survive, but we shall see. Obviously, moving on. Thanks for your feedback about the players. That's really great. So, what's your thoughts on obviously Nathan Jones? I know obviously a lot of Luton fans kind of hate him for the way he kind of treated you, but he also did really good things at the club. So, what's your overall thoughts on Nathan Jones?
Okay.
You can be as honest as you need to be.
So when he first left us, and to give you a bit of background about this, he did a press conference when he first joined Stoke. Having left us, we played an FA Cup game at Sheffield Wednesday, and the rumours were around that Stoke City were interested in signing him, which proved the point a few days later. But he then does his press conference for Stoke in a Luton top.
Oh.
That went down like an absolute lead balloon. And the words snake and everything else were bandied around significantly. However, he came back after that, did save us from relegation from the Championship, and put us in a very, very good position when Rob Edwards came in and took over. He does like his formations, and he will stick to them. And sometimes you will find he makes changes a little bit too late, lack of substitutions, and all the rest of it there. But the teams will be fit; they'll be well organised. Interesting to see he's signed a 5-year contract, albeit I'll virtually guarantee there'll be a release clause if a Premiership side comes in. He's tried the Premiership, obviously with Southampton, which was a bit of a disaster, although I think that was always going to be the case there. I think he would be better trying to build a side through. When Rob Edwards first came in, he had the benefit of a side that was very fit and very tactically organised. Rob Edwards effectively added a bit of flair, and that was what proved significant. The following season, I think, under Rob Edwards, the side was far less it was nowhere near as fit as it had been under Nathan.
Mm.
And that proved a significant downfall, particularly last year. For the fact that Matt Bloomfield comes in to a side, the Rob Edwards side, and said the players were unfit, I think is disgraceful at Championship level. But anyway, going back to Nathan Jones, very, very much a Marmite character with Luton. Would he be welcomed back if ever the opportunity arose? By a number, yes, but there'll be a number that will be vehemently opposed to that. Again, his biggest supporter at Luton was Mickey Harford, who's our chief recruitment officer now, and obviously a name that will be familiar to Charlton fans. So he was his biggest advocate. I think he should keep you in the division next season. And I think that will be a realistic aim for Charlton. If you can keep out the bottom three, absolutely fine. But as I say, don't underestimate the difference between Division 1 and the Championship. And that's moved on. We thought the Championship was stronger the year we dropped back into it from the Premier League than the year that we'd gone up. So it has strengthened significantly over the last 5 years. But he's well aware of that. So he's a good operator at Championship level. Whether he can hold a team in the Premiership, I don't know. Be interested to see. But was a very good manager for us over a period of time, albeit as soon as other opportunities came up, he was quick to take them on board. Now, I did notice that the Cardiff situation was rumoured with Nathan. Obviously, he's Cardiff born and bred. And I've been in managers' presentation evenings where he had actively said, if the opportunity ever came up at Cardiff, I would be interested.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's a no-brainer to stay at Charlton at the moment in time with the management and the ownership at Cardiff as it sits at this moment in time. Plus, it would have been a division lower. Had a higher placed team come in, I fear what he would have done from your point of view.
Yeah. Luckily, we didn't lose him, and I think I agree with you. He's very much a Marmite character. There was points in the season where I was like, "Oh, this guy's going to be the death of me," but I think we had to stick with him, and his nutter ways, and he very much likes to be the centre of attention, and he sometimes says things that upsets the fans, but I think that's just him, and you learn to love him in the end. I'll call him a gremlin. He's not kind of a gizmo gremlin. He's like one of them mad little angry gremlins. But I do it out of love and affection for him. He's a strange little fella, but he's done well with what he had to, obviously get us to the position we're in, and we're looking stronger going into the Championship than we looked last season, which is what we wanted. But Mark, thanks for the feedback about the about Luton, at Nathan. Before I let you go, if you could just give me sort of your expectations of what you're hoping for your own team this season. I'd love to know, what you're hoping for if you're looking to bounce straight back up. I think you're probably going to be one of the better teams in League One, if I'm honest. But obviously, in terms of recruitment and that, I've not really seen what you've done yet. But, what are you hoping for this season?
To be quite honest with you, and so much of football now is driven by budgets, because we've still got the benefit of the parachute payments, and with the sale of a number of players such as Kaminski, budget-wise, we've got the biggest budget in the division. And I'm sorry, if they don't spend that wisely, and they bought a couple of very, very promising youngsters in, keeper from Spurs who was at Orient last year, youngster from West Ham, but a couple of other more experienced pros. And, that's what we were lacking last year, was a bit of nous in the middle of the park. So they brought in George Saville from Millwall. And Millwall fans were disappointed to lose him, particularly to a Division 1 side. And Cal Naismith made a return from Bristol City and was made captain yesterday. They're a couple of key additions for us, and really where we were very short last year. We were lacking leaders. So they've addressed that. They've kept We lost the Norwegian guy up to Rangers, which was disappointing. We've kept Millie Alley at the moment in time, and in pre-season, to be honest with you, he will destroy Division One. He's quick, he's pacey, he's got some skill. I know he's been linked with a number of Championship sides already, notably Leicester. I would be very disappointed to see him, but if we keep him fit, the one area I've got some slight concerns is up front. We've let Carlton Morris go up to Derby. He would have been a massive threat in Division One. So we need to replace those goals. If we can replace those goals, I would be reasonably confident of being top two at the end of the season. And to be honest with you, I think there will be more questions asked if we don't finish top two this year than compared with the relegation from last year. And that, I think, is the level of expectation, and rightfully so, because unfortunately, football is now too much dominated by finances. And they've got to find a way of restoring that to a level playing field. And the higher you go up in the pyramid, the higher the financial clout makes a difference.
Yeah, 100%. We can't even compete with it ourselves. There's clubs offering silly money, isn't there? And obviously, when you go up, yourself, you can only offer so much because of FFP. But obviously, you're lucky that you've still got your parachute payments. That obviously gives you a bit more of a budget, doesn't it? But Mark, I'm going to have to let you go because I don't want to drag this on for too long because it will take up the whole show tomorrow night. But thank you so much for joining me. And I know we've had a bit of trouble getting it going this week, but I really appreciate your patience. And best of luck for the best of luck for the season. And I really hope to see Luton Town back where they belong in the Championship and then building their way back up.
Who knows? Hopefully we'll be playing ourselves the following season in the Championship.
Yeah, well, I've never been to Kenilworth Road, so I would love that. I was disappointed when you got relegated, to be honest. So
okay, well, it is an experience, as a number of people will say to you. But best of luck, and hopefully we can catch up with each other the season after next.
Yeah, take care, Mark. Thanks, mate.
All the best. No
See
problem.
you later.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.